Welcome again, and we're back. We have some more exploration of the Pioneer format and checking on from the recent top decks that was submitted or uploaded at the MTGO website. We got some interesting variants, as I say. As I think I call this one as a variant of the popular deck that came out of the recent Pro Tour that is from the Pioneer format, and we call this one as the June Reaper. Because White Reaper, it still goes with the main strategy of making sure that you have a Sorin Imperious Bloodlord and cheating out Vine Reaper as early as turn 2. So that's what you heard. It's correct. It's as early as turn 2 with this kind of deck build. And we can check this one. It is from Kitada Natsuki. As Japanese, we know that Japanese players are quite very high in ideas in terms of deck building or deck tech. So we'd still go with the core strategy, for example, but with this variant of Jund, we make sure that in case the main strategy would work, what would we check out next? So we check the lineup. We have 12 creatures. We have 5 artifacts, which are basically ramp and also can be acted as a threat with the Chariot. 8 enchantments, with of course the best 3-drop from the current format, which is the Fabled Mirror Breaker and the Huntsman's Redemption also as a support. We have 8 sorceries in the form of a discard spell and a tutor, and only the 4 planeswalker, which again Sorin Imperious Bloodlord with 23 lands in this, and of course the 15 card sideboard, which of course we're also going to discuss in a bit. We're going to check out the lineup aside from having also, as mentioned, as I've said, that it's a turn 2 Vine Reaper. Because of these cards, they have 8 1-drop here with a mana ramp in the form of 4 copies of Elvish Mystic, a copy of Gilded Goose, and 3 copies of Bloodnorrow Elves. We make sure with this kind of setup, as you can see in the lands, turn 1 untap land, turn 1 cast of a mana creature or mana dude, and then playing a second land on turn 2, casting Imperious Bloodlord Sorin and -3 placing Vine Reaper into play. So now what would these cards would suffice other than that? If we're not able to have a Sorin or a Vine Reaper early on, we can still have a turn 2 play with these enchantments. So you can see here, a turn 2 Fabled Mirror Breaker is pretty much a good play already. You can get out a 2/2 Shaman token that can create the treasure tokens, and then you can tick out early on by having the lore counter added, and then fixing up your hands by discarding those extra lands, for example, and then getting this one out as a reflection of Kikijiki as early as possible. Now the other option here is that we have also Huntsman's Redemption. So this card would also let you to create a 2-drop or a 3-drop per se. If you place this in turn 2, you can still get a 3/3 green beast creature token. Now with that setup, then your next lore counter is that you can sacrifice a creature. For example, you can sacrifice a one of the ramp early on, since you already had the value. Sacrifice it, you can search the library for a Vine Reaper or a basic land card, for example, and then get it to your hand, and maybe cast next a Sorin and then cheat it out into play. Or later on, you can get also to pump up your dudes. Up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 and has trample alternative turn. So any of those cards has basically gets you as much value as possible on your turn to play as early. And following that is your, of course, a turn 3 play. For example, if you have the mana and the elf, turn 3 Iskaz Chariot would also really mean you a very aggressive curve in comparison to that of the red-green aggro deck. You can create these 2/2 green cat creature tokens. Also, in your attack Izzet, you can create a token that's copy a target token you control, and only with the crew 4 requirement. And the other artifact here, the Curious Briefcase, will get you to also to create a token in the form of 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. At the same time, you can use this one to add mana of any color, and later on, if you get to able to complete the 5 colors, you can use this to sacrifice to draw 3 cards. But in any case, for example, the early move here is that you can use this to add mana of any color and sort of a ramp to your next powerful spell or creature in the deck. Now, aside from that setup, of course, we need also this utility and discard effects. So thoughts this here would pretty much gets you the great way to develop your game plan by having your opponent reveal their hand and take the best non-land card from it, and the cost of 2 life, but still you would also have enough information to know that what will be their following play in their next turns. For example, your possible play and play your strategy according to it. And of course, the Bethesda mirror here would also get you to have a good tutor because you can search level for a card. At the bonus also, if it's a bargain, once you bargain, you sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this one, you can have the exiled card played without paying mana cost if that card is mana value 4 or less. Or at any instance, you can search for a Sorin or any of these cards. You can see that most of them are pretty much 4 mana or less. We see that also the powerful cards here are 3 and 4 mana, aside of course from the Vine Reaper. But the good thing is that having also a free spell with a tutor effect would also get you a good board advantage and card advantage. Now for the lands, as you can see with the 23 lands, we have to make sure that our untapped 1 mana is also considered and as early as turn 1 for the untap. So we have Blooming Mars, Capulent Gorge, also with the Lunar Waste to produce green, 4 mana Confluence to make sure that you can have a green mana at turn 1, 4 Overgrown Tubes for the Shocklands, and the rest are pretty much to the fix. We have Blackleg Cliffs, Blood Creep, and some of the Swamp and Mountain as added toward the total of 23 lands in the main deck. Now the sideboard, we're just going to go with the specific matchups, we can say. So with the blue-white or Esper or any of the creativity decks, for example, you can use Duress to go against them as additional discard. And Grafdigger's Cage would also merge well with the Phoenix decks because cards in graveyards can enter the battlefield. Creature cards, for example, you can lock out their Phoenix, their Arclight Phoenix, for example, while also disrupting their game plan and also having your own. Copies of Pick Over Poison. This is also more of a utility spot removal, for example, because of it would not only kill off a creature with flying, which is that relevant to your mirror matchup against vampires or whenever they have a Vine Reaper in play, but also can kill off an enchantment or any relevant enchantment. For example, if they have had placed a mirror of a Fable of the Mirror Breaker against you, you can use it to have them sacrifice the card, the enchantment, or any other relevant artifact. You can choose this one as also an option depending on situations as may arise. Then we have also a copy of Clotis. Clotis would act here as a card exile effect from graveyards because if it be able to exile at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if it is a land that was exiled, you can add 1 or red or green mana. Otherwise, you gain 2 life and it will deal 2 damage to its opponent, which is also a good all damage effect source. And then if we can be able to develop your devotion, in case that you can assemble this as a 7 devotion, it will become a 4/5 attacker also, which also gets you to other use for that. And then we have 2 copies of Omnisterist Adversary for matchup, of course, that are quite let's say quite slow in the setup. We can see that cards decks like mid-range or blue-white control will be the best matchup for this. They would have to be having a hard time that they would need to discard a card or lose 2 life for that setup. So you need to also casualty this as early, maybe as early as turn 2 if you have a mana creature. Then it would have a starting utility of 1 that you can also use to +1 to have them this effect. And of course, discarding their hand would really be matter here because they are a control deck. They would need to have an early creature to deal with your Omnixilis or any spot removal per se. But having a casualty, which means you get a copy of this, having it to resolve 2 copies will also be very painful for your opponent to deal with. And then we have a copy of Path of Peril. We know that Boros Convoke would still be a very popular deck along with other aggro decks in the format, and then Path of Peril would basically clear them out as early as turn 3. And then in addition, we have Culling Ritual, which might need to also destroy non-land permanents. They say the anvil decks would still be the good target for that, the oven and the anvil. And having this one will also get you to produce a black or green mana for each permanent destroyed this way. Yeah, just be worried though that if you are using those mana creatures, you need maybe to side out a few of them so that they would not be able to become a target or a casualty of the culling ritual. And additional also or Kalitas, you know, with the aggro decks that are destroyed, you need also some way to somewhat develop an army, and Kalitas would be the best creature choice here because of that non-token creature that would die. There would be exiled, and then you will create a 2/2 black zombie creature in the battlefield. And also with a given life link, you can still have a good threat and get ahead of the life total for that kind of matchups. And last but not the least is a copy of Slaughter Games. We know that there are also some certain cards that you would need to exile from your opponent's graveyard and hand in library. So you need to have Slaughter Games to be able to use that. And the good thing is that it can be countered, so at any instance this can also be used against control decks, because they might be having heavy counter in the post sideboard. You can use Slaughter Games to break through that counter wall as they go with this kind of matchup. And last but not the least, we have our average curve of 2.76, so pretty much low for that setup. We only about a lot of 1 drop and 3 drops for this kind of deck, but later on can be still be able to have a good card advantage in the mid game up to the late game. The color distribution is mostly black with 32, with 17 for green and a little 4 for red, and more of these producers are pretty much the same, even for green, black, and red. And last but not least are tokens. We have 9. We have pretty much a lot of tokens used here in this deck. We have a beast token, cat token, citizen token, a copy token, a devil token, a food token, goblin shaman token from the fable, the treasure token, and last but not least is the zombie token from Kalitas. So I guess that's pretty much it for guys for this kind of variant, or let's say an interesting variant for the Vine Reaper vampire deck. We can go with a John Reaper, and if you would like to have this one or faced a similar deck list, let me know in the comments below so we can have a new discussion on what would your insights on this kind of build. Would it be considered as a top tier or could be in par with the top tier deck in the format? Let me know in the comments below so we can have a good discussion. So again guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notifications on, and see you on the next video.